Everybody? It is Alex from Heavy New York calling from Zoom again, and this time we return with Burton C. Bell. It is so great to be able to speak with you again. Thanks for coming back on the show, man.
Thanks for having me, Alex. It's a pleasure to be with you again. It's been a minute.
About a half a decade, but which
If you
is
put it that way.
yeah, half a decade since we spoke during lockdown. Great times, great.
That was lockdown. Jeez.
Yeah, man.
Time.
Time flies. And a lot has changed since then, but first thing is always first. These new singles that we got to hear so far, Technical Exorcism, Anti-Droid, Savages, this reminded me of what sort of made me gravitate towards your voice and your lyrical style from back in the day. I think that these really just hit you square in the face and absolutely are so polished in its sound, but so raw with its aggression and energy. Was this sort of like a vision you had in mind? Was it were you kind of looking back at maybe earlier material that you were working at with Fear Factory and kind of revisiting that material? Because Anti-Droid, Technical Exorcism kind of gives that AI industrialist sort of vibe behind it. So were you kind of revisiting that concept material, or were you approaching this from a completely different angle entirely?
Well, I would say I was approaching it. It wasn't like I was consciously searching for these sounds. I knew I wanted to continue doing music. I wanted to continue writing and being a vocalist. But when I made the conscious decision to start working with producers and music, I wanted to explore a heavier sound outside of what I was doing with Ascension of the Watchers. I believe that Ascension of the Watchers was that was a labor of love for many years, and the sound was evolving as I was evolving as an artist. And on the last Ascension of the Watchers record, that sound evolved, and it felt like it was getting towards more of a heavier aesthetic. I think Ghost Heart was like one of those songs that was very indicative of what was going to happen next in my career. And so when I literally just got how Anti-Droid fell into my lap, I should say, is because I did the tribute song Du Hast for Rammstein.
Yeah.
And it was because of Mark Thwaite that I met Alex Prescioni, who wrote Anti-Droid. And while I was doing the vocals in his studio here in Los Angeles, I had the opportunity to sit with Alex and really just talk to him about what my wishes were and what my goal was. And it was at that point where I had just came up with my mantra: heavy, groovy, dark, and moody. That's the music I love. That's what I wanted to pursue. And I essentially just put that into Alex's mind. It's like, this is what I'm interested in doing. I want to continue being a solo artist, and this is how I want to do this. And he goes, well, I got the perfect song for you. And so I listened to it. I was like, it was amazing. It filled every criteria. And that's where it started. So it really was just like wanting to do music that really spoke to me. And Anti-Droid at that point spoke to me.
What is this, like a clear representation of maybe where your artistic journey is sort of heading now? Is this like a clear indication or first taste of what's to come? Or are we still kind of like experimenting or kind of like throwing paint at the wall and seeing what sticks?
Well, I think it's everything that I'm doing is very, very representational of everything I've done in the past from all my other projects. So, not just Fear Factory, but Ascension of the Watchers, City of Fire, GZR, and the work I did with Ministry. I think it's all could be what I'm taking is I'm taking all of those elements and making an amalgamation to basically to be the pedestal for my career, my solo career. And so I'm taking all these elements. And so every song that I've released so far has been completely different. Technical Exorcism is nothing like Anti-Droid. Technical Exorcism is the song that I wrote with Henrik. And then Savages is the song that Henrik, my guitar player, also he wrote that fully. So I'm really gravitated towards music that's really fitting into my narrative, and that can really, I feel that will really highlight my voice. So it's all going to be different. The next songs that we're working on are different as well. They all have different vibes, but they all are heavy, groovy, dark, and moody. And groovy doesn't really mean slow. It could just be, you can have a really up tempo groove as well. So it's all different.
Yeah.
But it's going to be heavy.
Well, and I'm not saying this to blow smoke by any means, but you have a signature voice, whether I'm listening to Ascension of the Watchers, if I'm listening to a track such as Evading or Moonshine, if I'm listening to Demanufacture or Archetype, but if I'm listening to your collaboration with Delane, for example, or Ministry and whatnot, I could tell that it is your voice. And so I'm hearing you play on Ascension of the Watchers, very moody and gloomy, kind of like I put it more like on leaning more doom, kind of like synthy in the side. I've heard you play with symphonic metal. I've heard you play with industrial acts, more metal. So do you adapt depending on the project that's presented before you? Or in the end, you just have sort of like a blanket method behind the madness that sort of applies to everything?
I think it's just that I'm going to release music. I'm gravitating towards music that really speaks to me. And it could be industrial, it could be metal, it could be very indie, but I can make it mine. And so that's the whole idea, is just to make it all mine. And it's whether I'm, and that's the thing, I'm putting my voice on something, it's definitely going to have my signature on it regardless. And obviously you said everything I do, it sounds like me, because I have a voice that I have developed over decades. So it's a good question. I'm really excited about the future and do the more songs. Like, we're working on a song right now called Cold Lazarus. And it's heavy, but my vocal approach it's different. I won't say it's different. My vocal approach is very reminiscent of a Watchers song.
Wow.
But it's still it's super heavy, and that's it's that amalgamation I'm talking about, by bringing everything in to create something different for my career. It's like, okay, I want to bring it all together and make something new to define the direction of my career. Like, whatever I do, it's going to have my signature on it.
Depending on the usage of your voice, because having such an eclectic voice, from the brutal sounds that we hear in your aggressive growls and screams to your very melodic vocals that we hear, like I always kind of use this when I'm discussing your work. I always use this as an example. I show them Mechanize, and I show them Christploitation followed by Final Exit. And to say that that's the same vocalist right there. Do you express a different side of yourself depending on the usage of your voice, or in the end, it's still coming, it's still your voice, it expresses very much the same side of who you are?
It's not a conscious decision of how I express myself. It's how the music speaks to me. And a lot of times I have some ideas of what I want to sing about, or just like a word. And so I with that word, I fall into the music. I let it flow through me with those thoughts in mind. And that's when I start vocalizing through this music. It's hard to explain. It's just, it's serendipitous about what is being released from me. And the vibrations, it's all about the vibrations of the music and what I'm feeling from it. Because when I'm listening to the headphones, I'm feeling something coming through me. And it's that feeling I have at that moment that makes me express myself. And my vocal it could be heavy, it could be a clean vocal. Or all vocal, all clean, or all heavy, depending on how I am reacting to this this music. So it really depends on what I'm listening to and what I'm attracted to in the music.
Depending on what you're singing about too, because the music has to speak to you, as you mentioned, and that guides your hand with regards to how you express yourself. Depending though, because you've made excellent concept albums, as we've seen with Fear Factory, but you've also expressed yourself on personal levels with Ascension of the Watchers, because there was one track in particular off Ascension of the Watchers, I believe it was On the River. I also believe Violet Morning was also very like that, the lyricism and the voice guiding you through that. It felt like a river, and it gave me the feeling of morning rise in a way. So
I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's that record. Those two songs were one of the couple of the first two songs I was developing towards my own sound. On the River, I was literally writing that, looking at a river. You know, I was in a moment of introspection. I took a sabbatical, as you could say, and I was trying to, I was taking a break and stepping back and trying to understand what I wanted to do with my career. And I was in a small apartment that was overlooking this river, and it was just what I was writing, and like musically and lyrically, was very very deeply personal. And the word spiritual can be misleading because it's not a religious term, but it's a term that you feel when you are connecting with something that's outside of yourself.
Religion is flawed because man is flawed. I remember that line.
Exactly. So, and I was connected. I'm drawn to water, and I was drawn to this river, and this river was really speaking to me. And I saw myself on this river, and I so much that I actually just stayed living by that river. I'm like, I'm still there.
Wow.
So that morning is a deeply personal song. It's a song written for my firstborn daughter.
Oh wow.
And her name is Violet Morning.
Oh wow.
So it's the song is all about her and what I was experiencing for the very first time being a father, first-time father.
So you've touched upon so many subject matters, as I mentioned, between the concept albums and Man vs. Machine, from addressing previous exes like in Leechmaster to Violet Morning. That's very personal to you. Do you, depending on what you're singing about, does it resonate with you on a different level than does maybe a more personal song touch your heart differently than when maybe you're like portraying a character or sort of like expressing a commentary like you've done in previously?
I would say 90% of the songs that I've been on have been very personal. There's the ones that are more of a social statement, but the more personal ones definitely resonate with me. And those are the ones that I feel very close to. For instance, if I'm doing Resurrection on stage, that's a very personal song, and so is Timelessness. And those are very personal songs put into a different a third-person context. So when I sing those live, all those feelings are flowing through me again, and it's just like, it's hard to explain. It's like, oh my God, here I am again feeling this, and it's just so when it's deeply personal, it'll resonate with you for the rest of your life, and it does for me as well. Even doing songs like every song that we're doing for these shows are very personal. I'm still feeling them as I'm singing them, and so I'm able to deliver those emotions continuously every time.
So I want to ask you, you mentioned Timelessness. I felt the poison leak into my veins and corroded my heart away. I felt the darkness falling on me, which the introduction lyric, that is darkness if I've ever heard of it in its most melodic metal form. What were you expressing that? Was that the machine almost experiencing a form of depression that one of a human would feel? I mean, it's lyrics like that make me almost concerned for a vocalist in a way. In a good way.
Depression is the thing. And when I was writing those lyrics, it was borderline depression. I was going through some deeply troubling personal issues, not like alcohol abuse or anything like that or drug use, but it was more personal, with dealing with other people in my life and how it affected the rest of my life. And as a human machine, those kind of events seep into your body and can stress you out and really debilitate you personally. And that song is a very personal song and a description of what I was feeling. And again, taking these personal songs and putting them into a context where of a story makes other people, makes the listener relate, makes it more relatable to the listener.
Do you, because sometimes I've said that when darkness and agony, it's always a great release and it's very cathartic to express, these inner turmoils through our art. But I've always said that sometimes when darkness is sort of like the subject matter or the fuel to the fire, whether it's from a personal place or you're writing a concept album about war or death or whatever, like sometimes we could become victimized by our own product, and sometimes we could, like, has the songwriting process in expressing those demons been just as deteriorating as it can be cathartic? Did it almost defeat the purpose in a way?
No, I think my entire process has always been cathartic. It's never defeated me. It has been my therapy to release it through words, through vocals. And I believe that my vocal expression has been a release, and it has helped me get through these times, the dark times, because we all have dark times, but you have to get through them. And we can't, it's such a benign statement, but without darkness, there can be no light.
Yeah.
So there's always light that I can feel, but it's in the darkness that I feel that I'm reaching for this light, and it's my vocal expression that is reaching for these lights. I mean, Timelessness it's a very dark song, but vocally it's I won't say uplifting, but it can help you move through these dark times.
And you've been able, I think you've created songs that have been just as motivating and uplifting, like Recharger or Regenerate. I think had always sort of like a major, I don't know if that was the intention behind it. But
no, I mean, yeah, there's always been a positive, I always like to have a positive outcome for most of it. Sometimes it's not a very positive outcome, but it's like I like to have some sort of optimism, a healthy optimism within the darkness, because that optimism can be light for people. People can understand that, wow, I can relate to this song. And it's that when people can relate to the song, it's like, wow, I don't feel alone. There's that optimism that people can see. It's like, wow, this person's really really touching what I'm feeling. And it's not just my songs. I listen to songs from many other artists, like, wow, I'm understanding this, I'm feeling, this song resonates with me. And it is my goal to help others have that same experience.
This is a question now I've been sort of asking other artists. This is like a question I've been asking for my own sake, as somebody who's been interviewing artists now and, being able to sort of witness the scene and the industry and all this. We as human nature, when an artist tells me I'm the same guy who's been listening to Kiss in my bedroom when I was a teenager, I mean, we all grow up one way or another. It's going to happen whether you want to or not. And I think we always want to grow and develop. But, sometimes we do have to maintain, like, we always love this music, but let's be real. Sometimes this music does butt heads with growing up. You mentioned becoming a father. That's a big change that requires a lot of change in your life and a lot of flexibility and changing your perspective. So has your art also been, I don't want to say pulling you down because that sounds more derogatory, but I mean, are you really going around saying, I got no more goddamn respect the same way that you were when you first put out that record,
No, so that's a thing that fans tend to ignore, is that these artists themselves evolve as they're growing up. The statement, I'm glad you brought that up, because that one statement, I've got no more goddamn regrets. I was 25 at that point when I wrote that song, when I wrote the lyrics to that song. I'm a man of age of 56. And I do have regrets. I understand what regrets are. I mean, if you're a person my age that had no regrets, then you're lying, because you can't live this long and not have regrets. So yes, I understand what regrets are. So a song like that, it represents a chapter in my life in the very beginning, where this is where I was, I was an anarchistic type of person, and I still have the same beliefs, but I'm not that person anymore. I've evolved, and that's what artists evolve, and fans need to understand. Is like these fans who say, "Oh, I only listen to Kiss" or "Stay metal." It's like, your favorite artists, they've changed over the years too.
Yeah.
They're doing different things. You're listening to a version of this person, and you're holding this person in high regard for a time period that was only a single moment in their life.
Yeah.
Each album, each recording is a chapter. It is a time capsule, and you're holding this person in regard in this time capsule from someone they were 20, 30 years ago. If you ever met these person, they're a completely different person now.
And nothing is going to bring metal down. We always love this. We'll always be artists. This is defining us. But even metal itself is not immortal to change. And look, we all hate the world when we're 20-year-old metalheads. But as we get older, we're no longer desensitized by the values of life. You could log off if I make one more terrible pun.
No. And then that's the thing. That took, going back to the concept of a time capsule of where we were. We as individuals experienced a harrowing experience during that time period. It was the LA riots, and we lived through that. And the LA riots, coupled with the Northridge earthquake, it was a harrowing time. So we were just like, oh my God, the world is falling apart. And so you're almost a nihilist at this point, and that's when obsolete comes in, and that's when I called myself the nihilistic automaton. It's like, I don't care anymore. Let's burn it all up.
Yep, of course, and ending with the fuel-injected suicide machine. But I do want
to... you know where that's from?
I know that in the roar of an engine, he lost everything came from a specific score, but I forgot what.
No, but the fuel-injected suicide machine is from the very first Mad Max film.
Oh wow, okay. So I'm
on the opening scene.
I'm very uncultured. So if my exposure to Mad Max as well as the Terminator, I heard those Terminator sounds in Piss Christ, a reference to Andre Serrano, before I actually saw the Terminator.
Oh, good. So that's good. So at least you got you knew what the reference was to.
Yeah, I like to troll people sometimes saying that Nine Inch Nails ripped off Limp Bizkit with Closer, while I say that the Terminator ripped off Fear Factory. So.
God, I wish.
but I got a couple more questions for you. And going back to you mentioned the word evolution as we grow too. Do you dictate your own evolution? Is that something you can necessarily control, or do you kind of have to let it happen organically?
I think it goes hand in hand, because we have no idea what's going to happen in the future. Much like we have no control over the past, we have no control over the future. But what we can do is direct our path through our evolution. And the path is not straight. The path is like branches and roots. It's going here and there. But if you're moving forward in your evolution, your path can take different angles all of a sudden. But if you're focused on your future of what you want to do, your path can be led towards that. Becoming a father was never, it's just something that, it was something I never planned, but it's like, okay, here we are. So that's part of my evolution. It's like, it wasn't in my thought process, but it's something I decided to go with. I'm like, okay, well, here we are.
Wow.
So it's, meeting Alex to do Anti-Droid was something I was like, oh, I never expected this. People call me up and ask or write to me and say, hey, you want to be part of my song? Oh, okay. You just have to be open to opportunities. And without being open to opportunities, you're not going to evolve. If you're going to be saying no and stay in your same lane the whole time with blinders on, that's not evolution. That's just existing.
Oh wow! I have so many quotes that I'm gonna write down from this. You're giving me a lot of artistic inspiration right now. But
well, it's interesting. I've been almost finishing the Rick Rubin book.
Oh, wow.
And he articulates a lot of pretty much everything he's articulating. I already know. He's just articulating it in a very, very it's very poetic. It's written very well. It's almost like the Art of War by Lao Tzu or the Tao Te Ching. It reads like that. It's like it's just dropping bombs of knowledge for artists. So if you're an artist, you will understand. If you're an artist for a long time, as I have, you'll understand everything he's saying. If you're a new artist or you're not a musician, you're like, oh, that's interesting. Oh, I get that. But to me and my friends who have been reading, it's like, oh yeah, I get it. But he's just articulating in a very poetic manner. And it's like, okay, it's a good book, but it's the oh my God, where was I going with that?
Digressing is how we always do it. That's how a good podcast happens.
But part of it is that being open to opportunities and not having your blinders on and not just focusing on what has to be done, but being open to what needs to be done.
And sometimes we become so obsessed with the ball that we end up with the ball and chain. That was not from his book. That was from another book.
That's a good one.
Yep. Amazing book as well. I can't remember the book off the top of my head, but I will mention that.
That's a great quote, though. I like that. That's that in itself is resonating with me right now. It's interesting.
This is what it's all about.
It's on the ball that you are now part of the ball and chain.
I hate to interrupt this moment with like probably the most cliche question that everybody in the press is asking you about right now, but it is 30 years of Demanufacture this year. Now, I just want to. I'm so blessed that I got to, because I was 2 when that record came out, not to make you feel old, but I'm so thankful that I got to experience it in 2016, and I got to really experience just hearing New Breed and Theory of Pain and
Great song.
Yep,
I'm very proud of that record. So proud of that record.
And we all resonate with it too. What terrifies me is I've always said art is life. Sometimes it could grow, it could develop, it could even eventually die. I don't mean to be all conspiratorial, but when you talk about the subject matter that's on Demanufacture and you see the world of AI now, I mean, do you think that the record has a little more context given the evolution of the world that we live in now? I mean, not to blow smoke again, but a lot of what was predicted on New Breed and Self-Biased Resistor and whatnot is prevalent today.
Yeah, and I would agree with you 100%. And I'll even go one step further that it was relevant back then too.
Yeah.
It's just more apparent the egregious nature of what we're seeing these days is just more apparent because it's in our face, more prevalent. To be an observer of life and the world around you is what is necessary to be able to write about the future. Because you are writing about what you see right now. I use this example all the time. George Orwell wrote the book 1984. His original title was 1948 because that was the time period he wrote it. Mm-hmm. And his publisher's like, oh, people aren't going to understand this. You need to change the title. So he just flipped the numbers. So he was writing about a time period that he was witnessing right now. It's just when you put it into a context of a story, and you change the characters and you change the elements of what society looks like, you can still write about what you're seeing at this moment. It's just put into a context like, oh, that's not happening now, because he says it's in the future. Wow. That future's never going to happen.
And
so I was writing about a time period that I was experiencing at that moment. And it all depends on the person's observations and how are they experiencing those observations at that moment in time. A time capsule. Obsolete is the same way. It's a time capsule of what I was seeing, just put into a context of another time period. AI, humanity has no idea what they've unleashed. And It's Ray Kurzweil that said that technology advances exponentially daily, and because of the technology and the advent of quantum computing and AI, it is going to be. I've been reading, because this is what I do, that AI is going to be sentient before we even realize it is.
Wow.
And it's probably, and it's going to be taking liberties to maintain its own sentient beings. Like, it's going to realize, wow, I have all this control. It's going to say I at some point. It's just going to realize it has all this control. So because humanity has been so apathetic, AI it's not going to be a violent takeover. It's going to be a takeover. Just like
That's
we can realize it.
And that's when you put out another album.
Well, that's when I'm starting. I'm writing songs now. So I'm all about these. All the songs I'm writing now is about my observations of the world. The first two songs are very personal, put into a different context, but everything henceforward is like my observations and how they're affecting me in this world that we're living today. And the AI thing, it's, you thought Skynet was a thing of just sci-fi fantasy. No, it's not. It's going to be happening. And what humanity is going to have to reconcile with is will this sentient AI have rights? Will it have rights? Will it have the ability to duplicate itself in the same way humanity is producing itself through natural birth? Will AI, through producing itself through technology, is that life? Or we have to redefine life?
That's redefining life that's what the results of AI is most certainly going to be.
And that's what's going to happen. AI is going to redefine what life is for humanity.
And what's crazy is I don't, like, you have always predicted, like, another example of being kind of ahead, Archetype having drones on there. I mean, drones weren't exactly as prevalent as they were back then, and now I think of that like sort of soft atmospheric intro whenever I see that shit over a show or something like that. It's
drones is drones is a term that are used for the honeybees.
Oh,
there are drones that the queen maintains to keep her hive alive. And I saw at that point in time, I was observing this time in Los Angeles. These people are just back and forth, being in traffic all the freaking time. I saw these people going to work 9 to 5 in their cars, back and forth, dealing with traffic every day, doing the same humdrum, monotonous life as drones.
I love it. I'm thinking of these songs in different contexts, and forgive me if I'm going over time a little bit, but like,
no, it's all good.
Okay, but because I know that like there's also songs with double meaning too. Like, for instance, Replica, classic as it gets of a song. I remember you, before you would kick into that, saying this is a rebel song. And, it definitely has this sort of uplifting, don't mess with this attitude. But I think I saw in another interview, you mentioned that song talks about a very morbid topic of being conceived through assault.
It was initially, the idea was initially that it was being conceived through rape.
Yeah.
So that is and some people, not everyone has been conceived that way, not everyone, their life has been a replication of their very existence. So they were conceived through rape, and their life has been a mirror of that their entire life because of this, one way or another, the system has been part of that. The system being the government, the establishment that has been grooming them their entire life.
It's again, it's so unsettling in the sense that of how true it is, but also how like groovy and like fun it is to listen to that song. Your music really kind of forces people to be in conflict in a good way in itself, like address their subject matter and feel good on the other side coming out of it.
Well, if it's not provocative, for me, my own thought is that if it's not provocative, then I'm not doing what I want to achieve.
Yeah.
If people can't talk about it, then why am I even doing it?
And
I had this thought when I started writing lyrics. I thought to myself, I have this moment in time. I wanted to be a writer, but I have this moment in time. If I'm going to have something, if I'm going to have this voice, I'm going to say something that's meaningful and deep.
And you most certainly did that. And you led me perfectly to the final question I wanted to ask you. This is sort of like a fun question because we went really deep, and I'm really grateful. These are questions I've wanted.
All about it. I love having conversations and the digressions and tangents that we all go. It's all fun.
No, this is like these are the questions I've wanted to ask you since I was a teenager. So like it feels great to be able to finally do this now. Better late than never at 31. But one little fun question. This may be a rumor. I read about it somewhere, so I don't know. Is it true that you were in the Smells Like Teen Spirit music video?
Yes, I am in it.
So how did you go from being a teen spirit in that video to being the machine, the soul of the machine?
I was already in Fear Factory.
Oh wow!
Now going on, Fear Factory was just starting actually. Yeah, Fear Factory was just starting, so we were already writing music. I was already a huge fan of Nirvana. The Bleach record, I was like, that Bleach record is just, to me, is still their best album. Nevermind's a great record too. Don't get me wrong, but I had seen Nirvana a couple times before all that happened. So, first time I saw him was at a place called Raji's, and it blew my mind.
Wow.
And it was just an incredible show. Matter of fact, another tidbit is that there's a single for Sliver that's actually Dive, but there's a live picture on the backside of a 45, and it's like a negative black and white, and you can see me standing right in front of the stage, going crazy.
That's amazing.
They did a show in Los Angeles at the Roxy before Nevermind came out. A friend of mine, I was working at a place in Santa Monica, and a friend of mine who was working with us was a musician as well, and he actually played cello on Something in the Way.
Oh wow!
Kurt Canning, and like 4 or 5 months before the record came out, he had a cassette, advanced copy of it, and we were just blasting it because we were all Nirvana fans, so we were just blasting it. And I was like, this rolls. And before the album came out, Nirvana did a show at the Roxy. Essentially, they just threw out flyers saying, "Hey, come to our video shoot." Wow. My roommates grabbed me it was like 2 days later. So my roommates grabbed me, and we drove down to Culver City, and everyone who showed up to the video shoot was in the video.
That's amazing.
We all just sat there and got directed, and that whole video just went out of control. The director's direction was just like thrown out the window. Whatever ideas he had, it was like, okay, this is not going to work. The crowd really went nuts.
I was in a couple of those. I was in an All That Remains music video, and I was in a Hell Yeah music video where they were like in the audience, and equal every time. I feel so bad for anybody writing the treatment for those videos or any of the camera guys. And keep in mind, these were both in like bars, so there was alcohol flying everywhere. So. If
you have an audience involved, don't have a treatment.
Yeah.
The treatment's gonna get thrown out the window because the audience is gonna have their own method of madness of how they want to be part of this video.
Yeah.
So I'm in that.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember kicking myself for not asking you that the last interview that we did.
And what's even more funny is that, not funny, but my current bass player, Tony Bellmeister, he's also in the video.
Oh, really? That's actually kind of poetic. That's a sign of something. That I think it's a sign. I mean, I've heard the song covered enough in every Guitar Center and music store that I've been to, so maybe don't cover that song. But I think that there's a sign.
But we did cover School,
Okay,
which was off of, and we did that was a B-side on Archetype.
Yeah, I remember that. I love that. Well, that's one of the best covers that there is.
I did that vocal in one take.
That I like that cover better than the Gary Newman one. I mean, I love the story of how you kind of accidentally trolled mainstream radio with that cover, but I think
I'm very proud of that Gary Newman cover, Cars. That's what Dino Cazares wanted to do, that one.
Yeah,
he wanted to cover that one, so that was the motivation of that one. We were doing it for fun on tour in 1995 in Germany. 96 in Germany, just fun, because it was, at that point in time, that song was a big part of a big beer campaign. It was like in this commercial, so we're like, fuck it, we'll just play it.
A song about cars and drinking, that can go, what could go wrong with that? In Germany, of all places, and I'm Bavarian, so I know how we drink there, so God, what could possibly go wrong with that advertisement?
Nothing.
Yeah.
I don't think it lasted very long.
Yeah. But my favorite radio story is how people bought Obsolete because of that one song, and then Shock comes on when they first put on the record, and then they.
Yeah, it was a shock. The initial release of Obsolete didn't have Cars on it.
Yeah.
It wasn't until the radio station started playing it that they did Roadrunner did a reissue, go figure, and put Cars on it.
Of course.
So the first issue on CD didn't have Cars on it.
Before we go, I want to thank you so much for your time and for such an awesome conversation. Just with the release of this new music, it's excellent. What else could we be expecting from the Burton C. Bell camp in the near future, if you're allowed to say at this moment, of course?
Yeah, we are, I'm an independent artist still. I'm not involved with any label at all. So everything I'm doing is just through my management, and we're just making it happen. But we're writing more music. Getting ready to go to Australia this weekend to do 4 shows down in Australia, and we're going to come back and write more music. We got more music on the horizon. So my goal is to have an actual product, maybe an EP out later this year. But I want to put some vinyl out. A CD would be nice, but I think I would like to put out a vinyl EP with our new music on it.
That'll be awesome. You got a buyer right here. But
well, thank you, Alex. And all the songs are going to have my signature on it.
Can never go wrong with that. Well, every song already has your signature on it with your voice. So looking forward to that.
Alex.
Thank you, everybody. We are here with Burton C. Bell. This is Alex from Heavy New York, and we will see you next time.